people is something we encounter in all aspects of our life. I will present here this evening Wayne Sebera, who present the art and science of conflict resolution in dealing with people at home, at work, and in your community. Mr. Sebera has experience in dealing with conflicts arising in the corporate world as a VP for 2 large companies, including Raytheon Corporation. In the business community, as a program manager for projects with many suppliers and participants, and in personal life situations as a counselor, coach, or relationship counseling. He holds an MS/CS degree in engineering, a master's degree in psychology, and has done graduate work in management and finance. Please help me welcome our speaker this evening, Wayne Sebera, conflict resolution dealing with people.
It's amazing. When Alan asked me to give a speech here, I said, what subject would you like? And he said, send me a list of choices. I sent him a list of 7 different categories. Boom, 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 7 different things. Talking about the economy, talking about the new administration, talking about the world situation, talking about business, all different types. And, you know, in a heartbeat, the request came back, talk about conflict. Conflict resolution is what we need. So I said, what's going on with this group?
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be here tonight with you. I've had a lot of experience with conflict over the years in my life, including the corporate world and the business world. All of you are associated with supply management in some form or other. I've worked in services industry, product industry development, worked for both large corporations, including Boeing, Lockheed, Raytheon in the aerospace defense world. I've also had small businesses, as small as 1 person, me, as a consultant, which I ran for 10 years. I've also been a minister and had a spiritual center for 7 years that we did in Calabasas. During that period, I was doing a lot of counseling, marriage and family type counseling with individuals. In the corporate world, I realized the major part of the job of an executive is conflict resolution. I was reading a survey recently that said it's estimated 25% of a manager's time is spent focusing on conflicts and resolving them. 25% of the time. They went on to say very few colleges even address the subject. Higher education, they found only about 12 or 13% of the colleges that even had a course regarding conflict resolution or related matters. On the other hand, there are literally hundreds and perhaps thousands of articles and books, websites that are dealing with conflict resolution. So would you like to explore that tonight?
Yes.
Yes. That's the right answer. No conflict. Just to make sure you're in the right place. Whoever did this poster, I really appreciated the artwork. Who did this? You did. I really admire the artwork that you did, and I liked it so much that I wanted to show everybody what a beautiful job you did. Thank you for that. Now are you ready for your first lesson? Conflict resolution. Put on your gear, put on your helmets, put on your leather gloves. Get ready to knock heads with a little bit of conflict. Because tonight we're going to take a look at a holistic view of conflict. Holistic view. We're going to examine it from every possible perspective, and we're going to participate. It's not just me talking. All of you are going to participate as well. Today's questions: what is conflict? Grace, what do you think conflict is?
Conflict. It usually stems from disagreement about something.
Okay, that's right. And what would conflict resolution be, Tim?
Fixing that.
Fixing. Then what is conflict management? Okay, interesting. Resolution and management. We'll talk some more about that. Think about that in a minute. And what is your role in a conflict? If you're in the middle of the conflict, conflicting with another person, you're a participant. It's also very possible, especially in the business world, that you're a third party. You're an observer of two other people having fisticuffs or disagreement. So looking at your role and understanding what your role is in this particular matter becomes a very important decision on your part. Once you've established your context, you're in a much better position to deal with what has to happen next, which is, what steps do I take? I'm observing this situation, what steps do I take? And what would be a successful outcome to the conflict? Bottom line, what do you want? Whenever there's a conflict, there's a difference of opinion about what do you want. What do you want? Typically, it's a miscommunication or some other factor that led to conflict. Today, I want to create an awareness for you of what conflict is all about, a little bit about the types of domains, the context, the situations. I want to perceive an understanding of how you might act and to learn empathic listening skills. What would empathic listening skills be? Donna, what would you think?
Not only listening, but being able to relate to what they're saying and being able to understand where they're coming from and reply with the correct judgment to what they're trying to explain to you.
Very good, excellent. We're also going to look at developing discerning, non-judgmental, factual, and unbiased. That's a pretty big mouthful, isn't it? Let's say that together. To develop discerning, non-judgmental, factual, and unbiased thoughts, feelings, and actions. Why do we want to be unbiased when we're dealing with conflict? Anybody?
Sure.
Great.
Because if you choose a side or a position, then the other person is not going to want to listen to what you have to say, basically.
Good. Ryan, were you going to add something?
I think it's Larry. Oh, no. I was going to say the same exact thing.
You're going to say the exact same thing? That's amazing.
There.
The master strategies you can use. That's what we're about tonight.
No conflict over here.
Conflicts happen, don't they? Look at this. Who sees a conflict they can identify with?
All of them.
Who can explain one of these pictures? Carol, you have an idea what one of those might be? Tell us one. Pick one of your favorites and tell us about it.
Well, I look at the one at the top left-hand side with the kids.
Okay.
Probably they want something, and the other one wants it too, and so they're fighting over a toy or an object.
Okay. Does that ever happen in the adult world?
Yeah.
You may see it a time or two.
I guess going on the cloud and trying it out.
How about the lower left-hand side? What's the conflict in the lower left-hand side?
Perception.
Perception. I am telling you the truth, it's a 6. No, I'm telling you the truth, it's a 9. I know, I can see it right here. When we get into a conflict, oftentimes the miscommunication is due to one of factual misrepresentation. If you don't have your facts straight, there's going to be a difference of opinion.
Perception too, right?
And perception, absolutely. Have you ever seen a situation like these fellows in the middle?
You're so angry at each other that we lose sense of what the real issue is.
That's exactly right. They've escalated it to the point way beyond where it started. Do you imagine that that was the initial response? That they got red in the face? I think more likely they started with a minor difference of opinion and then it escalated to the point of high pressure. How about on the lower right-hand side? Has anybody seen a situation in the office similar to this? Have you ever experienced someone getting chewed out?
I've actually been on the receiving end of that.
Joe, I can't.
Yeah.
It doesn't look at all like you, though.
I had more hair. With those shampoos.
Share with us what it was like. What did you feel when that was going on, and what happened?
You know, the person was so angry at me, so angry. Never gave me a chance to explain my side, right? So they were not using empathic listening skills. They did not have thoughtful, unbiased thoughts, feelings, or actions towards me. Instead, they were explaining to me how I violated this and did this wrong and let them down and this, that, and the other thing. And I felt deflated, I felt embarrassed, I felt horrible, I felt I had no value, no worth.
Exactly. Anybody else been in that situation?
I was in it last year with a very belligerent engineering manager,
Yeah.
and he was trying to put me in my place, and I was on very, very solid ground. And I just let him go. And I said, you know, Ray, I said, why are you involved with this particular problem? You're the engineering manager, and this should be done at a lower level position. Change the suppliers on details, right? It's not rocket science. So, and he goes, oh, I said, you know what? I said, my understanding of your background is that you came to here 20 years ago after having been a professor in the university in Alabama. I said, if you were the good teacher, the people would know how to do this. Boy, did he smoke. I just put it back in the spot, you know. I was like, enough of this crap. I'm not.
What's happening in the top right
Not
corner?
happening.
What's happening in the top right corner?
No communication.
No communication, what else?
Silent treatment.
Silent treatment? Anything else? A withdrawal? I don't want to deal with this, just leave me alone, I'm getting out of here. The one in the middle on the top is an interesting case. There's been books written about this particular situation. Can anybody figure out what's going on in that situation? Yes?
Mediator, facilitator, mediator.
Facilitator or mediator? Okay. That would certainly fit the description here,
Well, at least for the person in the center.
right? That would be, here the person in the center would be the observer. And we're going to talk in a few minutes about the role of the observer and how involved that role becomes. There's also another situation that might be happening here. Anybody, any idea what that might be?
One person trying to convince the neutral observer to be on their side to make them right, so the other person will listen to what they're saying.
A little bargaining, a little bit of persuasion. There's a psychology game, it's described in a book by Dr. Byrne called Let's You and Him Fight. And its story is that sometimes, this is just a quotation, this is not me saying this, but sometimes a woman will encourage two men to fight so she can watch who's going to win the argument. And Dr. Byrne has written a whole story about how we step aside and get other people involved in the fight. I've seen this in the business world, I've seen this in the office, where sometimes people will just, have you ever noticed somebody who leave an innocuous note to trip one person who thinks it's a different person, and then watch the fireworks? It's long been said that a man never realizes how important a love letter is until his wife discovers one that he wrote something else. What causes conflict? This is a set of ideas. Just take a look at that. Which one of these do you feel is the most important? Most conflicts arise because of which one? Poor communication and tolerance, challenge to values, desire for power, self-interest. And what are the causes of conflict in your own personal life? If you look at your personal life with your personal relationships, your work relationship, your interaction with community organizations such as this one, what areas drive conflict? Perhaps it's different in those three different levels, isn't it? Things happen, situations change, and it raises an issue of conflict. What causes conflict? How do you resolve it? Well, it's simple. We can stop the briefing right here. Here's the cause and here's the resolution. Communication, listen without interrupting, show understanding, present your point of view, explain how you feel. One of the things I've noticed happens often in a conflict is the escalation of energy. It may start at a level of logic that says it was 3, not 4, and the other person says, no, I'm sure it was 4. No, it was just 3. No, I'm sure it was 4. And then they would argue 3 or 4. Pretty soon, one is calling the other one an idiot. You don't know the difference in 3 and 4. And the next one says, yeah, I do, and I remember last year when you did this to me, and I'm not gonna ever forget it, so why did you do that? And I'm not gonna let you take that. Have you seen that escalation ever? No one intends that to happen, it just happens. Communication is a big part of it. When you are confronted with someone who's angry, they've misunderstood you, they've taken your name in vain, they've done many things, and they suddenly come charging at you with a lot of energy, what's your response? Your response is to defend yourself. Perhaps the response is to flee. When you were talking about the confrontation, you might have wanted to get out of there. You might have wanted to stand up and
Duke it out.
duke it out. Yeah. There are a variety of different responses, but it sounds like you were wise to simply listen and let that vent. Sometimes when a person's very angry and the energy is built up, simply venting that energy is what helps to heal the problem. And when the receiver is one that escalates the energy as well, then the whole problem gets worse. So if you're able to be gentle and empathic and you're listening, it is a move in the right direction. Negotiating is about working on different agreements. Let's see if we can figure out how to make this work. And finally, evaluate your plan and communicate your feelings. Here's some stoppers of conflict. Let's take a look at the list. Are any of these habits that you yourself might be doing? To stop the conflict, you want to get the facts. You want to make a deal. You want to ask questions. Compromise.
Number one works well with your wife.
Number one. I
You have to be specific.
Not wrong.
You have to be specific.
I agree with my wife. She's always right. That's it.
Actually, Wayne, in a single conversation today, I employed several of these.
Did you? Excellent. That's great. My wife and I were first married. We used to have conflicts frequently. If you notice when I'm talking, I have a rather loud voice that projects. Every time I would talk to her, she'd say, "Why are you yelling at me?" I'm not yelling at you. I'm just talking in my normal. So I learned.
Talking with passion.
Talking to No, it's your tone of voice. You're still yelling. You know how we resolved that conflict? Over the years, she's become a little hard of hearing. And now, I have to yell for her to hear me. And I feel so guilty. I feel very guilty because I've been trained not to yell. We all go through these cycles. Let's understand what conflict is about. Understanding conflict is important. If you understand the energy, the dynamic, the process, it helps us to separate cause and effect, where your role connects to the other person's role, or your group connects to the other person's group. Rhetorical question. Is conflict good or bad? Is conflict bad or good?
It's both.
Yes.
Both. How many say it's good? How many say it's bad? How many say it's neither? That was a trick question. How many say it's both? Okay. Part of the difference that I wanted to address was the difference between resolution and management of conflict. Resolution of conflict means basically we are eliminating the conflict. We're solving, reducing the causes, we're reducing the issues or the irritations to the point that it can be resolved. Conflict management is a little bit different. In the workforce, in the office, you sometimes want a little conflict. Think about it. If everybody had no energy to challenge a comment or a decision, it would just be moving down the street with no excitement, no energy, no creativity, or at least less. So part of the conflict that's encouraged in many corporations, Steve Jobs loved to have conflict in his company. Trump likes conflict in the White House. He likes people argue and yell at each other because it stimulates the thought process. It makes you defend your positions. It makes you address what are the real issues. Why do I feel this way? And how can I use this to better the situation? Anyone else have an example of a good or bad situation? Here's your chance. No examples? You have an opportunity to see something where a conflict, even though it may have been uncomfortable, might have been beneficial.
So when I was getting yelled at, I did listen, as you suggested. There was value in what the manager was telling me. It actually helped me learn. I was very upset at the time. But when you take the emotion out of it and you think on it later, what I learned was he's trying to teach me something. Maybe, albeit not in the right way, I'll take that off the table for now. But yeah, there's something good that can come out of that.
This is one of the mindsets you need to think about when you're involved in a conflict. Ultimately, we're all one. We're all connected. We're all part of the same consciousness, part of the same human family. What people are saying to you, about you, is a reflection of what you are and what you're saying to them about them. When we understand that, we can drop the barriers. We can say what is good and what is true in this message I've been receiving. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, I don't like it. Yes, I wish it were otherwise. But how can I learn from this? See, we're always successful when there's a conflict. You're going to come away with some beneficial result, and the beneficial result may be I learned something. I learned something about the issue, I learned something about the individual, I learned something about myself. When you're truly involved in the conflict, that's when the understanding level becomes very deep and very robust.
Like,
Yes,
I once worked for an individual in the aerospace world who wanted his people to stir things up a little bit, create a little conflict because those people who weren't doing that, they were just, they were just coming in, doing their job, but not really, pushing other people, to do, their responsibility.
Exactly. So this is important to know. Conflicts are everywhere, aren't they? Look at this. They're in relationships, they're in organizations, in the workplace, the community, the political scene, international. If we take those 4 domains and look at them for a moment, each one of them has a certain characteristic to it. And we're going to explore that just a little bit here. You'll notice that the conflicts, as well as the solution, share some commonalities across those 4 domains. There's also some differences in the domains. In each case, there is a spectrum of responses and solutions that may be a very complex result, or it may be a result that says it's continuing. We haven't resolved it, it's continuing. And then it becomes what? A management problem. Not resolved, they have to be managed. Conflict escalation we addressed briefly already. It starts out with a disagreement. We see things differently. Then it's somebody says, it's your fault. This is not the first time. Do you remember when? Well, what's the use? Dialogue is abandoned. There's no use talking to that person. I'm fed up with that. They're just no good. Now we begin to form enemy images. We begin to judge people. They're just no good. And open hostility, the end justifies the means. And finally, let's get out of here. I just don't want to deal with this situation. This is what happens if we don't solve the problem in the early stages. It's like any disease or any illness. The earlier you catch it, the sooner you apply some results and some treatment to it, the better it becomes. When you're disagreeing with friends, what I'm going to do next is take these 4 domains and talk about each one of the 4. When friends disagree, give them a high five. First thing you want to do when a friend and you disagree is just stop a minute. Okay, we have a disagreement. Let me collect my consciousness. Let me collect my thoughts. Let me see where I am with this. Have I become angry and emotional that took me out of my logical thinking mind completely? Am I really aware of the full situation? So stop, think about what you're doing, and listen. The next step, number 2, is explaining yourself. Here's how I see this. And when we're doing that, we use what type of language? It's called I language. I feel this is making me very uncomfortable. My feelings are what Joe said a few minutes ago, where you were expressing your feelings during that instance. When we're dealing at a feeling level, we can communicate heart to heart with the other person. When we're not in a feeling space, then we become easily into a judgmental space. And as soon as we become judgmental, it causes a person to become defensive. The judgments and the defenses go back and forth. That's why we need to explain it using I language. Listen to what they say. What I hear you saying is, what I think you want is, am I correct in understanding where you're coming from? That's the conversational listening, and then we think about it. After we get all the information correctly in hand, we can think about what to do about it, come up with a choice of a solution. Does this make sense?
Yes.
It's probably an oversimplification, but it gives you some pedestals to stand on. If you're in a dispute, think about these 5 steps and see how they work for you. I think you'll find it's very helpful. Let's go to the office in the workplace. Well, we need to form a conflict resolution team to settle the dispute over who should be chosen for our conflict resolution team. One thing escalates to another. For an organization and business model for conflict resolution, I want to share with you a story when I took over as vice president at Ford Aerospace, which became Morale. I ran a software engineering organization with several hundreds of people, had 5 departments. 3 of them were in the Palo Alto area, 1 was in Colorado, and the 5th one was in England. The department manager in England and the department manager in Colorado wanted to kill each other. They would not talk to each other, they would not collaborate, they would not help each other. And the problem is they were both serving the same customer. So the customer got in the middle of this and observed the conflict and all. I realized fairly quickly this was not healthy. This was not the way I want the organization to run. So I called them up and said, Bill and John, we're getting together for the day. We reserved a room that was private. We started at 8 o'clock. They flew in from their respective locations, and we began. We began understanding what were the grievances, what were the issues, what were the legacies, where did this start, how did this happen, how did it escalate, what are your feelings about this, what are your thoughts about improving it? And as we began to talk, we began to put more and more information out on the table. And as soon as we had the information clear, remember, we start with data. Data is a bunch of pieces of data that are just a little of this and a little of that. When you get the data, you put it together into information that tells you something. And the information then can line up to be a story. And the story will give you a clue on what you need to do. When we got to the point of really understanding the story, we did something else. We did a role play swap. How many of you have done a role play at some point in your life? Role play, if Alan and I are having a disagreement and we're really angry at one another, the third party, an observer, may come in and say, Wayne, I want you to tell me what Alan would say about this, what Alan feels about this, what Alan thinks about this. Tell me why he thinks it's a good idea. Tell me what his issues and concerns are. You will speak as Alan. It's hard to do, but you do it. And with the coach, you're able to stay on track. As soon as that's through, we find out, ask Alan to validate, is that accurate? Is that accurate? Is that correct? Then we toss the ball to Alan. Alan, you're now speaking as Wayne. Tell us what Wayne's issues are. Tell us Wayne's concerns, Wayne's problems, Wayne's likes and dislikes. Through the role play, another level of understanding and connection happens. By the end of the day, we had a written agreement with quite a few items on it of what each person was agreeing to do and how we would follow up on it. We then had follow-up meetings to confirm that the plan was being implemented, the agreement was being held, and there were no new fallouts. that worked pretty well, and they later became pretty good friends, believe it or not. I give that as an example because I really know that technique works. I've seen it, I've used it several times. Designate a private meeting place, define the outcomes you want, allow each party to voice their view, agree on differences, explore potential solutions, come up with a plan and follow-up actions, do what you agreed to do, and very important, follow up, follow through. You know the difference between follow up and follow through? Have you ever delegated something to someone and they didn't get the job done? You say, oh, I should have followed up with them. They missed something important, or they got distracted. Well, follow up means we're seeing that there's activity taking place. Did you file a report? Did you answer the question? But follow through goes deeper. Did you not only check the box, did you also satisfy the intent? Did you do the full picture of what we agreed to do? Follow up, follow through. One of the best things on business strategies is to plan ahead. Perfect planning prevents poor performance, right? You heard that before? Defining the R's and R's, roles, responsibilities, and authorities. If I know each member in the organization, I know what your role is, your responsibility, and your authority. Suddenly we now have a jigsaw puzzle that fits together instead of people trying to figure it out. Without the roles, responsibilities, and authorities, people will be guessing, they'll be inventing, they'll be duplicating work and missing other work. So this is something that in my organizations we always put to writing, make sure that it was agreed to. Training for improving listening skills. Talk some about that. And then managing the conflict. Whether you're a participant or an observer, these tools and techniques will work to get a case. The goal in managing is to optimize the benefits. So if you're seeing a little excitement from the conflict, maybe you'll want to egg it on a little bit more, raise it to another level, if you're seeing something positive and beneficial. But make sure when you do, it's focused on the issue, the facts, and the logic. As soon as it becomes an emotional dispute and personalities are involved, then you've lost the ball game. So the idea about managing the conflict is to do that. Keep it at the logical, problem-oriented level. Don't allow it to migrate into personalities. Follow up and follow through. Do you know what that means? Who was listening 5 minutes ago? Follow up and follow through. Do you know what that means? Let's see. Anybody know what follow up and follow through is?
If you made a commitment, follow up on it, and then follow through, you can deliver it.
Okay. I think I explained it all as well, and I'm seeing some blank stares. Do I need to do that again? No, please.
No, it's good.
The thing about making decisions and working